as the judges, we'll just briefly introduce ourselves. My name is Nola Wanta. I'm the Senior Director of Business Development and Strategy. I do a host of different things. My background is in higher education. I've been in higher education and in business schools for a little over 20 years, and it's my pleasure to be here today with you all and to learn from you all. So with that, Carlos, please.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be here as well and learn from everybody. This is my third or fourth time being honored to be one of the judges. My background is primarily in information technology, innovative solutions, got into strategic planning as well. Lately been doing a lot of volunteer work with nonprofits, which I learned tons, probably more than I contribute. And I'm also a student right now, so I understand a little bit about what some of you are going through. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And so now I'd like to launch it to the team. So I'll let you kind of hot potato over to each other on who will go first. So why don't we start, Max, since you started us off a little bit earlier, we'll start with you and then just hot potato it to your teammates.
All right. So I'm Max Boyd. What information do you want in these kind of introductions?
So basically, it's introducing yourselves and your role and your organization that you're representing.
Oh, okay. Should we just jump right into our
You can jump. Well, let me read my thing first, and then you guys can start. How about that?
That sounds great.
Okay, this may be a better flow. I'm going with the flow. So yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
So in this part of the competition, you are taking on a fictional business identity and assigning a fictional business identity to us, the judges. Please make sure everyone knows who you are and who they are before you all begin. You will have 25 minutes to describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem and to recommend a solution that passes muster on all three counts. During this time, teams will be uninterrupted, so both Carlos and I will be on mute. We'll be listening. When you are finished, the judges, we will ask you questions for 10 to 15 minutes. During the Q&A, both the team and the judges stay in character, so we'll do that for 10 to 15 minutes. After the Q&A, the judges will take off our judging hat and we'll give you feedback outside of the role-playing time that we have. So with that, I'll pitch it over to you. I'll go on mute and please go ahead and start.
Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We are Majik Solutions, and we'd like to talk to you today about bridging the gap in Seattle's transit network. I'm Max Boyd.
I'm Andrea Aguilera.
I'm Jada Ghazi.
I'm Ishana Sharma. And I'm Kashish Garg. Our focus as part of the Sustainable Development Goal is on the cities and the community, specifically SDG 11.2. This goal calls for access to safe, affordable, accessible, and sustainable transport systems by 2030 and emphasizes the need to improve the road safety and expand public transportation, especially for those in vulnerable situations, including women, children, people with disabilities, and older adults. Everything that we'll be discussing here as part of this presentation will be grounded in this vision because transportation is more than just mobility. It's about equity, dignity, and opportunity for all. Underserved communities face significant transportation challenges due to poor first and last mile connectivity and a lack of awareness about transit options. This leads to economic isolation, inefficient commutes, and difficulty navigating transit systems. The Seattle Transportation Plan, also known as the STP, outlines a growth strategy to make travel in Seattle faster, more equitable, reliable, sustainable, and affordable. It uses the current population data based on current housing and job growth to provide guidance on how to improve the current transportation investments. Regions have been categorized based on both the urgency and type of improvements required. This helps us prioritize investments where the impact will be more significant and immediate. Previous analysis of the Seattle metropolitan area helped conduct a comprehensive analysis of current bus transit system. Each bus route has been carefully analyzed to determine its level of investment need, ranging from the minor enhancements to major overhauls. This allows for a more targeted and efficient allocation of resources and calls for system reevaluation of all existing bus routes to ensure alignment with current demographic trends, growth patterns, and community priorities. The graph that you're seeing right now compares changes in the bus route changes usage across network. We're focusing on the top bus routes showing the most significant shifts in usage, from the highest increase to the steepest declines. The routes on the left show increase in ridership, highlighting the growth in demand. The routes on the right indicate the decline, signaling potential areas for reevaluation. Now, these insights guide where to invest, adjust, or streamline services. Live data for all of these routes are available anytime on the King County Metro websites. Now, with that, I will hand this off over to Jader. Jader.
Limited transit access in underserved communities hinders access to healthcare, education, and job, raising equity concerns. These communities are often excluded from planning due to public meetings held at inconvenient times and locations, making participation difficult for working-class families and those without transportation, which raises ethical concerns about their voices being heard and needs addressed. King County faces severe traffic congestions, ranking among the top 10 worst in the nation. Barriers particularly affect rural residents, seniors, non-English speakers, people with disabilities, transit-dependent workers, and low-income and minority communities. Let's look into the language and cultural barriers. Immigrant populations in SeaTac and Toccoa, for example, face languages, barriers, and limited outreach. Community involvement in South Seattle is low, leading to data-driven plans that don't reflect the residents' needs. The diagram to the right shows a large proportion of dark red spots, which correlates to the high density of the population with limited English proficiency. Due to the differences in language and cultures, providing on-command, honest feedback to authorities can be difficult. Addressing the first and last mile challenge is crucial for underserved communities, as they often have limited transportation options. Ethical considerations include ensuring these solutions are accessible, affordable, and inclusive for marginalized groups. We need to enhance the community's awareness of transit options that are available. Commuters in neighborhoods like South Park and Rainier Beach can face a lack of continuous sidewalks and are in poor conditions, creating unsafe walking environments and obstacles for those with limited mobility. Many residents live too far from major transit routes, discouraging ridership and increasing reliance on costly alternatives like rideshare services. King County has started to address these problems with paratransit solutions like MicroFlex to improve accessibility, but they need help in making it easier to use and raising awareness, which leads into our unified app that helps solve this challenge. Introducing One Transit C, we want to propose a two-step approach of first introducing a centralized app of all current transit possibilities and then increasing awareness to Seattle by upgrading marketing strategies by incentive programs and promoting the app on billboards, bus banners, and local spots. Currently, Seattle Transit includes buses like King County Metro and Sound Transit. Next slide, please. And other rail systems like the Seattle streetcars, linked light rails, and there's also water transportations such as the ferries and water taxis. One Transit C app can centralize various transit apps into a single platform, suggesting the best app for your personal route. It supports multiple languages and also catering to diverse communities and all age groups. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to Max to go into the details of the app.
For this proposal, we are encouraging you, Sound Transit and King County Metro, to partner together. As both of your agencies already have an aligned mission, you're both committed to enhancing public transportation to support the region's growth and ensure accessible, efficient, and equitable transit options for all of our residents. In this app, we are talking about making it easier for folks to utilize all of the various transit systems throughout throughout the region. Right, so this app is going to feature real-time shuttle and transit updates. data-driven route optimization, as well as ensuring that we have in-app privacy controls for data sharing like preferences. Right. We'll talk more about ethical data usage and the legal and ethical requirements later on in this presentation, but it's a key that we include this as part of our vision. Additionally, so many great transit options are available, but people are unable to find them or understand them, right? And so using this app as a one-stop shop will help raise awareness about existing transit options, as well as allowing folks to be able to use the application to make better data-driven decisions. It's important that we partner with community organizations to educate residents, especially in underserved areas, and we need to be able to provide resources to make sure that using the app and shuttle services we have is as easy as possible. All right, now I'm going to kick it over to Andrea, who's going to talk through some of the legal requirements.
Thank you, Max. So as we build this app, it's essential we get the legal foundation right to avoid any compliance issues or liabilities down the line. No pun intended. First, ADA compliance is non-negotiable. Our app needs to address accessibility to all users, which means meeting the WCAG 2.1 AA standards. Accessibility is a civil right, and it's especially important in the context of transportation. Next is data privacy. Because we're handling user data, like location and trip history, we need to comply with regulations like Washington's Privacy Act and adopt best practices from CCPA. This means giving users control over their data, clear consent, and ability to opt in or out, and just being transparent about how we're using their data. We also need strong contractual and liability agreements with our partner agencies and vendors. These contracts clarify responsibilities, protect intellectual property, and define what happens if something were to go wrong. Lastly, since this involves public transit, we must comply with Federal Transit Administration procurement laws. This includes open bidding, equitable partnerships, and strict tracking of performance metrics, all to ensure that federal funding is used responsibly and fairly. Now shifting into branding and user communications, there are a few more key legal areas we need to keep in mind. Under intellectual property law, we must secure proper usage rights for any transit agency logos, branded visuals, or third-party tools like Mapbox or Google Maps. We're aggregating a lot of content here, so respecting ownership is key. Also, consumer protection law ensures that we're clear and honest with all of our users. Our app must be transparent about pricing, functionality, and its limitations. This is especially important in transportation where misinformation can lead to real-world consequences. As we launch our marketing campaigns, we need to follow CAN and SPAM and TCPA regulations. This means getting consent before we send emails or SMS messages, offering easy opt-outs, and avoiding misleading subject lines, as violations can lead to steep penalties, so this is an area we'll monitor very closely.
While staying legally compliant is essential, legality alone doesn't guarantee a system that is fair, inclusive, or responsible. That's where ethics comes in. To evaluate our solution from an ethics point of view, we will look at 6 different ethical lenses. Each of these will offer a different perspective on building an effective yet equitable solution. Including this analysis early in our design will help us support the UN Sustainable Development Goal of effective, accountable, and transparent institutions for all. First, we evaluate our system through the rights lens. This goes beyond what's legally required for the fundamental right to privacy. It's about respecting individual autonomy and acknowledging the dynamics between transit data collectors and their users. With the One Transit C app, this means building privacy-first architecture that doesn't just protect data, but empowers users. With our public engagement efforts, this means designing outreach and participation models that give communities real influence over how their data or over how their behavior is interpreted, how services are shaped around them, and how they can retain agency in systems that directly affect their daily lives. We also consider the justice lens. The key question here is, are the benefits and burdens being distributed fairly? Our centralized app must use anonymized and aggregated data to avoid individual tracking and digital discrimination. This is especially important for low-income riders or certain demographics who may fear surveillance. Predictive models, if unchecked, can unintentionally bias how resources are allocated, often worsening disparities. At the same time, our public engagement and incentive strategies must ensure that historically underserved communities are not just included, but prioritized. This means designing campaigns in partnership with local organizations to ensure access, representation, and fairness from the onset. From a utilitarian perspective, the One Transit C app helps enhance the efficiency of the entire system. We're creating environmental and social value by maximizing benefits like reduced travel time, lower carbon footprints, and increased overall efficiency in our system. However, these gains shouldn't compromise public trust, especially among vulnerable populations. We'll need to implement strict access controls, data minimization, and third-party audits to ensure transparency and safeguard privacy. The common good lens. This focuses on maximizing benefit and reducing harm for all. In addition to our app, we'll work closely with communities through public engagement and incentivization to ensure that equitable access is available for all the community. Ethics isn't just about compliance, it's about care and taking actions that align most closely with our ethical values. Are we listening to the people most affected? Are we building trust? These are questions that we will answer using a community-driven data governance approach. We will empower underserved populations to make their own decisions. This means co-creating policies with local neighborhoods and advocacy groups before trial rollouts, ensuring that both the app and our campaigns reflect the values and needs of the community, not just what's convenient for the city or from technological ease. Using these 6 lenses, we've defined 4 guiding principles for an ethical code of conduct. First, clarity and accountability. We commit to open communication about how the transit system functions, from algorithms to incentives, real-time updates, clear explanations of data usage, and accessible public reporting. Second, informed participation. Ethical engagement means more than just opt-in screens. We'll ensure users and communities understand how their data is used and how their voices shape the system. Respect for user data. We prioritize commuter dignity by minimizing data collection, employing the identification, conducting regular audits. Ethical design means using only the data necessary to improve transit and never exploiting personal information for unrelated purposes. Lastly, oversight. We will integrate community feedback into both our app and the broader engagement strategy. This includes ongoing bias checks for any AI features and community-led decision-making structures to ensure the system respects and uplifts all demographic groups.
Now that we've told you about what we think we should build, why we think you should build it, and the legal and ethical sides, let's talk about money. How are we going to fund this? Right. So currently, as you know, 92% of revenue for transit comes through local sales taxes. Right. We're not in the business of making money off of fares. We're providing a service to the community. And so really the way that we tend to, in the community, tend to metric how well we're doing is kind of the cost per boarding, or the number of rides divided by the operating costs, right? And so this means that fares tend to be a very small portion of kind of the operating costs that we have, right? And additionally, there's a number of expansion projects that are currently going on, right? Recently, we had the Rapid Ride G line that was an express bus lane that cost $144 million in infrastructure improvements over 8 years, and the Linwood Light Rail extension, which cost $3 billion over 16 years, right? So in addition to about $1 billion a year in operating costs, there's additional expenditures going to all of these infrastructure improvements that are already going by, right? And what we've seen is that increasing access increases ridership, right? That Linwood Light Rail extension, we saw that as soon as it opened up, it increased ridership by 100,000 riders a month just by adding additional stops, making it easier for folks to move, start taking transit closer to them, right? And looking at this kind of cost per boarding, scenario, we see that we have a range of kind of efficiencies in terms of options, right? Light rail and bus are the most efficient in terms of cost per boarding at just under $11. And then you have much more expensive options coming down the line. Metroflex, which is considered actually quite a success in the areas that it's been, are about $32 per boarding, and access is about $80, but that includes very specialized access for folks with disabilities or otherwise able, right? And so really the idea is we can get all these costs down by increasing ridership because our operational costs are fairly fixed, right? And so let's talk about what do we think it'll cost to build this app, right? We think we can build this in 18 months with a small team of about 8 to 10 people, right? Including PMs, engineers, designers, and kind of community outreach, right? For a total of about $4 million in terms of total operational costs. Now, to advertise this, we've got some really useful kind of benefits going on for us. Right, so this is one of our rapid ride buses, right? It is the C line, and you'll see that there's unused advertising space directly on the buses that you own and control, right? And so because you have this excess capacity, we can actually fill that with basic billboard ads for One Transit that advertises in multiple languages and has a QR code available, right? So that folks can actually download the app directly from the ad and start using it right away, right? This doesn't cost anything because you're using excess advertising capacity that's already going unused. It allows for immediate call to action, and it's located right with the users that you're trying to hit, right? We want to increase folks using transit. It's right there with the transit. So all told, we think the cost of the project is about $4 million. The King County Metro annual budget is about $2.1 billion for 2025. Sound Transit's annual budget is $3.2 billion. So in the scheme of things, our $4 million project is, well, okay, you can't quite see it on that pie graph. Let's zoom in just a little bit. It's right there. It's that tiny, tiny little drop in the bucket of, that doesn't really you can't even see it. And the thing is that $4 million can really help us be efficient as we're starting to build out new projects, because better data means better projects. If we can do a 4% cost savings, well, the next cost of rapid ride I-line expansion is $170 million. If we can have a 4% cost savings on that, that's $6.8 million saved at a cost of $4 million through this additional data infrastructure. So now I want to hand it over to Andrea, who's going to talk to us in more detail about our implementation plan.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about what it actually means to implement this proposal. Right now, we see it in 4 distinct phases. Phase 1 is month 1 to 3, planning and stakeholder alignment. In this phase, we're going to host initial workshops with transit agencies, define shared goals, responsibility, and data sharing agreements, and secure funding and establish governance structure. In phase 2, months 4 to 9, that's really where we focus on app development and legal review. At this time, we're going to design and develop the minimal viable product of the app. We would integrate APIs from all transit partners, integrated real-time tracking, fare systems, and so forth. We would also conduct legal reviews, FTA procurement compliance, ensure that we're compliant with ADA accessibility and privacy policies, and also use this time to set up backend infrastructure, user feedback channels. Then during phase 3 in months 10 to 12, that's when we'll really kick off beta testing and refinement. During this time, we're going to soft launch in select neighborhoods. We're going to collect user feedback and adjust features according to that feedback and conduct final legal checks and risk assessments. Then lastly, during phase 4, months 13 to 18, that's really where we do the full rollout and marketing campaign. At that time, we're going to launch the full version of the app countywide. We're going to begin multilingual, multi-platform awareness campaign. And we're also going to partner with local community organizations, employers, and schools for adoption. Lastly, during this time, it's very critical that we track engagement. And then from that, tracking those metrics, we will adjust campaign based on what we find. And so what we're asking from you today is let's build a smarter, more equitable transit future. We're asking for you to partner with us to develop an all-in-one app that centralizes King County's transit options, prioritizing accessibility, efficiency, and privacy. We're asking for you to collaborate with us to ensure seamless data integration, legal compliance, and community-informed design. Lastly, we really need you to support the launch of public awareness campaign to educate, engage, and empower residents, especially those in underserved areas.
Seattle's population is set to hit about 1 million residents within the next decade. While public transit is expanding, the first and last mile connectivity remains a major challenge, especially for underserved communities. This gap discourages ridership and raises fairness concerns. Increasing road congestions and changing commuter patterns highlight the need for adaptable transit solutions. We propose a centralized app that combines current transit apps to make it easier to use and also to promote new marketing strategies to enhance local awareness, while also focusing on ethical data governance. Bridging these gaps ensures fair access to and smoother journeys, getting everyone on board efficiently and equitably. Thank you for taking your time to listening to our presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So just for a quick clarification, and I'll launch us into the questions along with our other judge. I think it's still Carlos here.
Yeah.
So Carlos and I are representing, I took notes on it, the South Transit and King County Metro. So we're each kind of one of them. Okay, cool. So I guess, Carlos, I can be South County Metro. And okay, so just a quick question for me to get us started. First, I'd like to say from the ethical perspective, I really appreciate the approach and really looking at the underserved communities and designing, an app that's accessible and equitable, including, which I wholeheartedly believe, in terms of public transportation. Now, in terms of the 4 million, did that also include, I assume it includes all of the marketing and so forth that you had included in your implementation plan, correct?
Yes, right. Part of the plan with the marketing, right, was to use kind of essentially free advertising because it's the excess capacity that King County Metro and Sound Transit have. So there will still be some costs in terms of developing the advertisements and doing kind of all of that. But
Sure.
in terms of needing to do, like, wouldn't necessarily need to do paid advertising. So that 4 million includes some of the development costs of materials and the actual physical ads, but not.
But it's primarily focused on the development of the app itself and the integration of the data that's currently in existence.
Yeah, the vast bulk of it was on app development, with basically about 20% focused on kind of the advertisement budget of developing that.
Okay, great. Carlos, questions from you?
Thank you so much for presenting to us. I think you had a good grasp about our public transportation writers and prospective ones, so thank you for that. Did have a question about, do you have an idea, since we're talking about this ethical issue of serving the underserved community and the lower socioeconomic, what percent of that population does not have an app or shares that phone that would have access to that app that could be hindered by this solution?
Great question.
I can take that. So I think the reason we started with an app is because there already exists app solutions that people are only aware of using for one particular use case. So if you want to take the Metroflex, there is another app for that. If you want to take the light rail, there is an Orca card and a system to do that, but they're not integrated together. So our solution is focused on making sure that all of those users who are already using these services are just not connected in one way. And with one app, they can use that transit much easier.
Yeah, and also to add to that, we did do some research. Well, I'm not quite certain on the percentages. King County does offer a program for low-income folks to have access to smartphones. So there is already a program in place bringing smartphone access to lower-income communities here in King County.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Would be augmented, and that would help with the overall solution as well, letting them know about that other source.
Yeah, I do also want to add, with the current apps that are available, there is currently some incentive promotions, like there's like lower fares for seniors and for children. So we kind of want to like upgrade that with our app to possibly like during the days that are like maybe low traffic, like on the weekends. Those days are when there's like lower ridership percentages because people are not going into the office or they're usually at home. So if there's a way that we can possibly do like a, I don't know, like a discounted fare or a way to promote like, hey, if you go on the slower days of the buses or the trains, you may get extra points by having this app, which can then turn into a free, ride for buses or the water taxi or the train.
And just
Okay,
to add
thank you.
a bit more information to that, like there right now at the King County website where all the everyday data for bus routes is being handled, there also a data every day based on how many senior citizens are using what kind of services, kids use, adults, a lower income. So all of those data points are being recorded at this point. So if we do need to collect those data, they are collected live, they are represented live as well for us to show.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Fantastic. And so, and I'm not sure because I'm not familiar with Seattle, but I assume that they do, like you mentioned earlier, they do partner with nonprofits and some accessibility measures to provide for those who are underserved. What other populations are you guys considering serving to increase ridership, outside of underserved communities and so forth? Because, when we think about public transportation, it's public, right? And the public generally doesn't know that there's public transportation. So, as you consider other underserved communities, what other areas have you guys considered?
So our focus has been to bring everyone together at this point, really, because as with the back to work policy, there are a lot of workers that are going back to work. There are a lot of like students who are going back to school as well. So it's pretty. We were just trying to focus on the overall population in general, but at the same time do bring in that facility to everyone's attention, as well as the underserved communities as well. Just that many people have migrated during pandemic from one place to another. And now with lack of marketing and lack of awareness, now with this change and shift of workplace, many people altogether are unaware of what is available for them. So we do want to bring overall, like you said, public together in this to serve them and show them these are the facilities that do exist. You might not be aware of it because it's not being showcased as much. But then we do want to bring the overall traffic lower for transport just reliability on vehicles lower and public transportation higher.
Okay.
I had a question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was saying, additionally, there's a lot of the public transit at the moment is very focused around getting folks from kind of suburbs into urban cores, which tends to be more towards office workers and folks who are in kind of these kind of higher careers. Whereas some of the underserved populations in terms of public transportation are kind of some of these either like suburbs to suburbs who are not necessarily working in like an office job. But in order to do this, they would have to basically do this kind of whole rebound of go to an urban core and then branch out from another urban core to some other suburb. And so frankly speaking, we need more data because they're not utilizing the system currently because the system doesn't serve their needs. But if they're able to kind of use this to start to kind of even be able to plan like their own, like, hey, I need to commute from my house here to my job there, even using like traffic and some of the normal traffic sorts of things, similar to Google Maps, you can start collecting that data of here's where these people are transiting. Maybe we should start building out some better infrastructure from a suburb to suburb kind of transit, right? So there are populations that aren't currently being served, and it's not even necessarily on like ethnic background, it's just socioeconomic or kind of career style. So sorry to cut you off, Carlos. I just wanted to make sure that we
that was very helpful, Max, and our agency would definitely be interested in a suburb to suburb solution and that demographic. So thank you for that. One thing I was going to ask you is you laid out very well the 6 ethical areas that your solution would offer. And at our agency too, the ethics is super important. if you had to pick one of those 6 areas that you mentioned, which solution do you think would address the biggest ethical area for this one singular unified app, please?
So I think the way that I kind of thought about this is not necessarily like an ethic, like each of those lenses are lending themselves to different aspects of the problem, but they're all trying to say the same thing, right? I think, so for example, like if we're talking about rights or if we're talking about justice, they might be approaching our solution from different angles. So the rights is like, are you respecting the rights of individuals? And justice is like, are you distributing them fairly? But they're all centered around the same idea of being mindful of our community and listening to them and empowering them, right? And I think all lenses kind of lend themselves to that central issue of listen to what needs to be heard. And in that respect, you can, I don't want to say one thing, but if you really want to generalize and pick one, I think it's all about care and trust. And if you can provide that, then that by itself will fulfill all the other lenses.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
That is very helpful. Yeah, I was just considering the ethical lens that you were and what you had just mentioned. And I think, at least for me, it's the common good, right? Providing accessibility and being able to have the freedom to get from one place to the other and not hindered by lack of, so forth. But like you had mentioned, creating that awareness. And as I think about awareness too, because that's big, right? When we think about the common good or even public, anytime we think about public, we're like, well, how do you create awareness of this particular need? And I've appreciated what you guys had mentioned about, the various potential marketing approaches and, kind of getting the app out. But can you talk a little bit more about, once the app is built, like how you mentioned it a little bit, but I'd like a little bit more of an expansion. Like how do you, and who would be your first target audience? Like as, you're launching the app?
I guess I'll jump
Sure.
in. So part of this, a little bit of background is, at first we wanted to figure out, our first approach was, hey, let's figure out what are the best ways to solve this first and last mile problem. And we came up with this really cool paratransit solution of having these, Uber-like shuttles that can get you to and from transit centers and all of that. And then we found out that that already exists, but nobody knows about it. So that's really where we said, okay, well, one, we can't pitch a solution that already exists. How do we solve the nobody knows about this side of things, right? And even to go and do it, you had to get a whole separate application. You had to do all of this, right? So a big part of kind of I think the first target market is, hey, there's some really stellar transit options available to you that you just don't know about. And so I think we'd probably start targeting kind of those underserved communities that have these options that just aren't actually being advertised, right? I live in one of I know someone who lives in one of the communities where Metroplex is active and did not know about it, right? And so it's how do you do that community outreach to actually make it aware that these things exist. So I think you start there, right? You start there saying, hey, here's your one-stop shop for everything that you need. And then as new solutions are built out, you can push it out as updates and community updates through the app. You can collect, community feedback through the app, right? It really can become a dialogue between kind of the population and King County and Sound Transit.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, there is very much a need for this one centralized app. We looked at reviews across the already existing apps. Like if you were to go on the App Store and look at Sound Transit's various apps that we mentioned in this presentation, it has like 2 stars. Nobody's happy. There's so much feedback about just the lack of accessibility within the app and just not being able to get the stuff you need when you need it. So us approaching the solution, it's like we want to centralize it in one place. And so the people that already have all these bits and pieces of apps, obviously they would also be a part of our first customer segment. And in terms of adoption, they would be some of our first clients and customers. So just thinking about it that way, people who are already using some of these apps, naturally, it would be easier to reach them. And just to add one last bit to it, you asked for targeted audience. To be more specific, the targeted audience in this would be the youth who is working, so lower to average household incomes who cannot afford not everyone in the family can afford cars or like vehicles of their own. So enhancing this app, being able to navigate like how to get from point A to point B without having to rely on cars itself would be our main target. This would be how we would measure success of it. So as we know, and I myself can vouch for it as well, having someone who has to like go from house to school and walk 2 miles one way, had I known like what if there was a facility available, that would have saved a lot of my time. So I know there are a lot of youth out there who are also working and going to school at the same time. There are a lot of households that there are multiple people juggling multiple jobs at the same time, who would benefit a lot from something like this and can get away from not having to buy their own cars. Also, given the amount of like inflation happening within the gas prices as well. So having that budgeted out as well.
You mentioned the $4 million cost. You laid out a very good plan of how it would be phased out. What would be, and you talked about the percentage of our agencies, combined revenues. What would you say the ROI is for that 4 million that you're proposing?
Yeah, so I think part of it is that the agencies invest ROI a little bit differently, right? Because a little bit of it is about increasing this ridership. That being said, I think that the increase of kind of better data to be able to make some of these kind of clear distinctions, right? I think you'll actually see the ROI comes in the form of being able to better target these kind of $100 million projects to say, hey, this is actually the area where we need to invest in kind of more rigid or stronger things, right? So you're not going to necessarily see the ROI in terms of fares, but in terms of like reduced waste in the form of you don't want to build $170 million bus that no one's going to use, right? So that's kind of, I think, where we end up seeing the ROI, and even just seeing a 1% reduction in waste in those cases, right? $3 billion for the Link Light Rail, Linwood extension. That's what 1% of 3 billion is $30 million right there. So it's 15x. I'm not good at math. It's a 7x return on ROI roughly there.
Thank you, Max.
Yeah.
Thanks. Carlos, do you have any additional questions?
Yeah, maybe one more question. So we're talking about ethics, and our agency is looking at other companies, other solutions as well. Tell us a little bit how you would answer about your Majik Solutions, your organization. What kind of ethical company are you in order to provide the solution for us, please?
Could you repeat the question, please? You cut off a little bit there.
Oh, sure. Tell us a little bit about your organization, your company, from the ethical perspective, since we're talking about ethics. Does that help?
Sure. I think there are like our 4 guiding principles, right, that we talked about in terms of looking at all the lenses and then coming up with the 4 core principles that we would stand by for this app, right? And I think that kind of complements the ethos that we have as a company, right? Combine that with the Sound Transit and King County mission charter. I think the whole idea is we're all trying to build the right things ethically, sustainably, and effectively, right? It's just about coming together and making that happen, but making sure that we have the right principles from the design phase itself.
Wonderful, thanks.
And I want to add on to that, to kind of describe like what's the ethical background of our Majik Solutions, including underserved communities. People come from different backgrounds. People that are just moving into Seattle that don't know what transit options are available. People that are born and raised in Seattle, have families. So we don't want to just focus on underserved communities, but we also want to include people that are like, they need like accessible transportation, like if it's like a bus, Metroflex, or if they're a student, we need to also focus with them with their busy schedule. So we just want to bring highlight to the different backgrounds and ages of the target audience that we want to reach.
Yeah, and just to close it all out, we really saw a lot of alignment between our company and your 2 companies here. So we really do believe that we can also make life better and create equitable opportunities for all. And we're invested. We're here in Seattle as you are. So who else better to partner with than somebody local who understands the challenges?
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for that and for the wonderful presentation. And so now I think Carlos and I will take off our hats as you know the South Transit in King County, and we'll go back to being Nola and Carlos. So first, I just want to say what a great presentation. I love how you guys really covered, I mean, the whole gamut. As I think about public-private partnerships, right? It really rings true to that. And, I think that that's so important in today's world. And yeah, just having that understanding of public-private partnerships and being respectful of the various constituents involved, including who, the transit folks do serve, right? So I'm in the LA area, and so I'm avid public transportation rider, and I get it because I thought there was one app. No. So I do appreciate, addressing this particular solution because you add in, the ferries, and that's a whole different thing, right? And so yeah. So anyway, I thought great job. Carlos, any thoughts, feedback, questions?
So many great things.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. So I loved your analysis. I thought it was really good. It was very detailed. One of the areas, for example, you could tell you looked into that was you didn't want higher prices for those that are most underserved
Yeah.
based on the data. So you're really looking at it from that ethical perspective of making sure the data is not used inappropriately, right? Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
people can just say, oh, look, here's an opportunity to make more money, more profit on that. So I really appreciate that. Presentation was phenomenal. I really love how you transitioned the topic and then the speaker and made it very smooth.
Yeah.
And the graphics were really cool as
Yeah.
well. Great job on that. That must have taken a lot of time. Maybe you're experts in that, but for me, I know it takes me a while. And so great job on a lot of those details. Very good.
Yeah, absolutely. So real quick, are you guys like considering even taking this up and presenting it to these organizations or starting the conversation to or
We
pitching
haven't
it to
thought about it, but
someone?
we're definitely
I mean, if
Yeah,
it's a real need, I think it's worthwhile to have that conversation, especially, and I mean, I have family that lives up in Seattle and, I've always wondered, I love public transport and I've only really seen in the major metropolitan areas, as you were saying. And so, something like this would be great. And I think if more cities did something similar, with a one-stop shop for various apps that connects all of the agencies. I mean, this is where you truly learn how public-private partnerships really work, because there is a process for all of that, right? In terms of where the funding comes from. I mean, I wasn't quite there to ask that question, like, well, how would this work and how much would each of us need to contribute kind of thing, but those are things to absolutely consider because one may provide more than other. And so ethically speaking, there's so much to consider, like, especially when you're partnering with multiple organizations. And, even in the LA area, we have at least 3 or 4 major, providers of transport here from Metro to, and then you go cross county and it's like, oh my God, it's hard. So it's almost regional. So it's very cool that you guys are tackling this is my thought. So, and keeping your focus and lens around the underserved communities. I mean, that is one thing I will give LA. They have not raised their prices since I was maybe by a quarter, by 25 cents. But it's been, or maybe 50 cents. It's been fairly much the same. It hasn't gone above $2 and there's a price cap for all the riders. So it's like $5 a day. And then you're capped and you can ride as much as you want. So, as you think about those ethical perspectives, the common good, I really appreciate that this, exercise has really kind of instilled that and just, sharing that particular approach, at least what LA Metro is doing here, fare capping, really minimal to serve all the communities in Los Angeles. I mean, It's cheaper for seniors, which I'm like, can't wait. But you know, it's great. It's really great. But yeah, appreciate you guys and your work.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I definitely, that's a great idea. No, let's suggest it. I mean, you should, I know you're all very super busy, probably working, studying, everything else, have family. Definitely see if you can reach out to somebody to send it to. And you probably don't need to recreate the presentation because it's so strong.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't get that audience, find some emails and send it to some of the representatives or the, agencies and see what happens. I mean, you can at least say that you sent it to them, but
Yes.
good job. I was going to mention a couple of things. Would you like input on a little bit more tactical things on the presentation?
Yep, we've got some time if you guys want some additional input.
Okay, see you shaking your head, some of them thumbs up. Okay, so some minor things. I did think I saw a typo on the one of the first few slides. I think you were trying to say social. Maybe I missed that, but there may have been a couple other typos, so just double check that. And then again, I really thought you all did great on the transition of topic and, from slide to slide, and then the speaker, thought that was excellent. Continue to do that. You have a really good presentation. You don't really need to read the words on there or the content, because you can either, I know those are good notes. If you want to then have those notes on the side when there's more text on a slide, and then just have like a bullet point, or what's your main point of this? I think that would resonate even more. But again, for the most part, I thought the way you articulated it, the flow of it was all really, really strong. And those are only two small things. I thought everybody did a great job. Congratulations. You should be very proud of yourselves. A lot of hard work.
Agree, very much so. And I'll just piggyback on Carlos really quick. What I loved about most of your is, in addition to your slides itself, is your flow. You guys are a very well cohesive team. It really shows by, how the knowledge that you all hold, it's all collective and not just staying with one. It's like I could tell that you guys really talked this through and worked through this. It's great.
Thank you. Yeah, it took a lot of practice with our flow. We had a very things.
It looked very natural. We couldn't tell, but good job.
Yes. Good job. Good job.
What questions can we help answer for you since we've taken off that hat?
Yeah.
By chance?
I have a question.
Sure.
Compared to like a winning argument or winning proposal, right? Like, what is that one thing that we can add to ours so it could become that winning? What is the one missing element?
Ooh, Carlos, maybe, this is my first time
Yeah, that's a very good question. Kind of like the question I asked you, if you had to pick one of the 6 ethical errors, which one would you pick?
Yeah.
Are you just getting this back at me?
That's a hard question.
No, it's a very good question. I would say is, and one of the nonprofits that I work with, the global CEO is very good about, do you know the acronym WIFM? WIIFM? What's in it for me?
Mm-hmm.
So in the presentation, I'm kind of backing into the answer, but you want to think about, here, Nola and I are these 2 agencies individually, not just for the agency or the organization overall, but what is Carlos, the director, the department head of this agency, what is he looking at? What's in it for me? Because although we want to think ethically, we want to think holistically, we're individuals, we're humans, and I might be thinking about, is this going to make my life easier and I don't have to work 60 hours? Is it going to get me a promotion? Is it going to get me to be the mayor because I did such a great thing for my community? And then that takes research. But if you research who you're talking to, their social media, who they like, who they're following, and then I would really think about then guiding your presentation toward that. So if somebody's more financially oriented, and Max and others, you did a good job of saying, hey, if you spent 4 million, but you get 1% efficiency off of this billions, that's a small percentage. There's your ROI. So if I'm with them on the financial, and you explain your assumptions on why you said 1%, just don't throw out 1%, but based on this research or based on, Majik Solutions' awesome experience with other clients, that would resonate. And then if it's more ethical, then you want to focus more on the community and helping out and have that personal story, which you started to do. And, I think Andrew says, hey, we're from Seattle. What better company to provide this solution? Don't go with Accenture or a big consulting firm. Does that help answer your question about what kind of one area?
Yeah, I think I totally agree with Carlos because it's, and you'll hear that, like, what's in it for me? That's it. It depends on who you're talking to, but I think you guys are great in terms of really addressing the many aspects of your presentation, from the financials, which is big for some folks, the marketing segmentation, when you're talking underserved communities, that's where I'm at. Like, who do you mean and who else? When we're talking public, it's huge. So I think what you guys have done as a team, which I praise you for, is again, it's that conversation amongst yourself, having a little bit of expertise here and there, but really sharing the knowledge and the value of your presentation of what you're really going for, the ethical value of what you're really going for. So, but the what's in it for me, like Carlos said, you'll find that at least in this competition, really listen to the questions. Really listen to the questions and address it accordingly. You guys will do great.
Yeah, thank you, Noel. And don't be afraid to ask the person to clarify the question, or
Yes.
where are you coming from, or don't be afraid of that. There's no reason just to confirm you understand it. And I try to do that now, and I've been in the world. I do that because I've misunderstood questions so far. I answer it literally, but haven't always thought about why they're really asking it. So you can ask them, what's your background, or what's your thought process on that question. I can better answer that question with a little bit more information.
Yep.
Any other questions that we can help answer?
Anything else?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You guys have been great.